Hello, everyone. My name is Vala Afshar, and we're here at Disrupt TV. Welcome to the green room. Before we start the show, we go around in reverse order and introduce our guests. I'm here with the best producer in the world, El Froze, and of course, my co-host, first ballot Hall of Fame Disrupt TV inductee, Holger Mueller, subbing in for, of course, the icon, the legend, Ray Wong, who's coming back from Davos. So Holger will be filling his big shoes. So in reverse order, let's introduce our guests. If you could tell us your name and what you're planning to speak to us in this segment. We'll start with Elisa. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Delighted to be here. I'm Elisa Van Dam. I'm Vice President for Allyship and Inclusion at the Simmons University Institute for Inclusive Leadership. And I'm here with my wonderful colleague and boss, Susan MacKenty Brady, to talk about some research that we did on women thriving at work.
Terrific. Susan.
Hi, and thanks Susan, for having us. My name is Susan Brady. It's my second time on Disrupt TV. I hope am I tracking here live? I am the co-author of Arrive and Thrive, 7 Impactful Practices for Women Navigating Leadership, and also the CEO of the Institute for Inclusive Leadership. So thanks for having us.
Welcome back, Susan. Larry.
Thank you.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Larry Chinski, and I'm Senior Vice President of Corporate Strategy at One Identity, where we focus completely on credential-based cybersecurity. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about identity as a critical component of your security ecosystem.
Welcome, Larry. Okay, well, thank you again for joining us. And Elle, let's start the show.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on Disrupt TV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on X/Twitter at Disrupt TV Show. It is my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Holger Mueller, Vice President and Principal at Constellation Research. Holger is a thought leader, CXO advisor, professional speaker, author, and a recovering software developer. Holger, I saw this on your LinkedIn bio. Traveling the globe and cyberspace as Constellation Research Principal Analyst and VP researching enterprise software with a focus on next-gen apps and future of work. Now, as far as recovering developer, previous 25 years before being a VP at Constellation.
Enough, Vala. Come on, it's good. People can read up on
global head of products, Vice President of Application Development, and I love this, Chief Application Architect at SAP. Welcome back, Holger, on Disrupt TV. Anything I left out? Did I leave out the red and black sneakers in your bio? What did I leave out?
Those are super important because you have to give something personal as an analyst. I grew up in Italy. I speak Italian longer than English, and AC Milan, red and black is my team, and my sneakers are red and black for that, to show my loyalty. Thanks for bringing it up.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, people tune in not for you and I, but for our guests, and it's our privilege to have Larry Chinski, Senior Vice President of Global IAM Strategy at One Identity. One Identity delivers solutions that help customers strengthen their operational efficiency, reduce risk surface, control cost, and enhance their cybersecurity. Holger, listen to this. One Identity has 11,000 plus enterprise customers, 80 of the Fortune 100 customers, 500 million plus identities managed, and over 1,000 global partners. As Global Senior Vice President of Strategy, Larry is a seasoned cybersecurity strategist with a commitment to enhancing One Identity's suite of solution. He's got over 25 years of experience in the IT industry and a specific focus on identity and access management for the past 15 years. So he's on the forefront of delivering cutting-edge cybersecurity SaaS. His extensive experience includes collaborating with some of the world's largest enterprises, 80 of the Fortune 100, where he has been instrumental in designing, implementing IAM solutions across diverse industry verticals. Welcome, Larry, to Disrupt TV.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. And I have to say, I'm a little bit disappointed. You know, this is my first time with you guys, and I was expecting a little bit more energy from both of you guys. I don't know if you can amp it up a little bit. I'm a very outgoing, energetic kind of guy. I need a little bit more here. So I know Ray very well. I'm bummed Ray and I have shared the stage before. So, anyway, I'm kidding. And I feel like I'm not sure if I should be here after listening to Holger's resume there. Maybe you have the wrong guy. I'm not sure. But,
Chief Application Architect. Larry, it's very hard to keep up with Ray. So please, that bar is way too high.
I didn't know that. That's for sure. Yeah.
Floor is yours, Holger. Floor is yours.
Okay, perfect. Well, obviously we talk about identity here, right? So, and it's so important in the digital economy that we know who we're dealing with, and working with. And it's great to have someone who has the background and the reach of One Identity on the show here today. What would you say are the biggest trends that people should think of upcoming on cybersecurity and One Identity and IAM in general, right? From identity management, what is changing in 2024 as with the beginning of it, Larry?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've seen, of course, I get asked that a lot. Like, what trends do you see in cyber? What trends as it relates to identity? And I think it's pretty obvious when you look at one of the things we like to do at One Identity, and one of the things that I specifically target is I try to get underneath what the attack surface looks like and what the threat surface looks like. And so when you look at, and of course, it depends on which breach report you read and which type of data you're looking at, but somewhere between 80 to 86% of the breaches that you see occurring today are occurring on top of the identity. And I like to use this acronym called EFL, which is easy, fast, and lucrative. So the threat actors today are not looking for a long time of being involved or being inside of an organization illegally, trying to steal credit card numbers and things like that. When you look at the different types of ransomware attacks and how those occur, what they're trying to do is basically just find one identity. They purchase identities on the dark web. They fire them into an organization to see if one sticks. And then when it does, it's pretty simple to inject some type of encryption algorithm and hold that data hostage, which is obviously what ransomware is all about. So they're looking for a quick payday and they're looking to get out. So as we look at what that causes organizations to start looking at identity a little bit differently. And a lot of organizations and a lot of vendors in this space talk about identity is the new perimeter. That is because we're now forced to build their security postures on top of the identity. So when you do that, you're now looking at not being able to use hardened endpoints like infrastructure devices and network segmentation and port blocking and content filters, things like that. You truly have to build your identity ecosystem or your security ecosystem on top of the identity. So that's really kind of shifted how things have gone. And we add to that an enormous remote workforce today, just based on the fact that people aren't coming into the buildings and organizations to get those layers of protection. Move to the cloud, where not only are they moving their own products and services to the cloud, they're moving their security tools to the cloud as well. And then an enormous investment in hyper-automation tools and AI. And so when you do that, it really widens out that attack surface. And so when that happens, we're really forced to take another look at identity as a critical part of how we're building our security posture. So I would say, and the short version of that, different trends: remote workforce, cloud, AI, hyper-automation, and those type of things have widened this attack surface out, which has caused CISOs to rethink how they're building their security postures.
What I like about One Identity is the amount of effort the company puts into educating stakeholders. Lots of infographics, white papers, webinars. You had an number 8 IAM best practices, and 7 and 8 ended with 7 required periodic recertification of permissions, job roles, and membership, and 8 was assign permissions to job roles rather than individuals. And in the commentary of the 8 best practices and deep dive into the 8 categories, it was summarized that IAM isn't something you do once and then forget about it. It's a critical part of IT infrastructure, and it demands continuous management. Can you first identify what it means when you think about digital identity for folks that are watching who may not be familiar with what is it we're talking about? And then identity management as a service. If this is continuous and the threat vectors keep scaling, it feels like CISOs and IT leaders need to consider partnering with a company that has a platform that can provide a service where you have continuity and always improving in terms of making sure you address vulnerabilities.
Yeah, that's a great question, Vala. As a matter of fact, One Identity, you talked about the education and how we approach that. And I like to do what I call start at the beginning, not start in the middle. We're a technology company. Technology companies are very excited about their technology. They want to create technology and build technology and then drop it out in the industry and say, this is what you need. But like I just talked about, what we like to do is start at the beginning with an education process on why identity is so important. It starts with, when you look at the most widely publicized breaches that have occurred today, you can go all the way back to SolarWinds, the 2 big casinos in Vegas that just happened with Caesars and MGM. We got the Colonial Pipeline, we got JBS. Whoever thought that a meat processing slaughterhouse did they ever think that anybody would care about their data? So we like to talk about, look at all these organizations here. The identity is what was breached. The 2 things, though, that they had is they all had an identity tool deployed to protect them against those sorts of things. And they all are different industry verticals. They're kind of all over the map, which shows that. So we like to start with, look at that. And then we talk about the enterprise attack surface, like I just mentioned, then get to what is required today to build a secure platform around that. And so, these companies that are deploying tools individually, that's what we call a fragmented approach to cybersecurity. And so kind of, answering your question, back to what you asked there, we look at today, identity is the most fragmented market in all of cybersecurity. It's, when we talk about where to spend the money, those individual tools and buying in that fragmented fashion does not work. And if you look at those companies I just mentioned, they all had identity tools, still were the subject of a breach. So what we see happening now is a consolidation and convergence of these identity-based technologies together. And that's probably one of the biggest points that we see that has shifted over the last, quite frankly, just the last really year and a half. At One Identity, we started building what we called our converged platform or our unified platform, which was look at all the 4 segments that exist today around what I call credential-based cyber, and how can we fuse those together to provide a true identity-based ecosystem. So as we look to do that, we have to look at where these different threats are coming from, and then where are we going to build the value? Because organizations, they typically have a critical thing they're trying to get under control. Maybe it's privileged accounts, or maybe they care about operational efficiency or things like that. So what we see happening now is even technology vendors are starting to build this model where they're integrating all those things together. So for us, it's much more about not building a bunch of technology and then deploying that like it was done 5-6 years ago, because we know that's not going to work. But it's how can we build and architect solutions that can create this platform? So like, as you said, as things move to the cloud, we want to be able to build an infrastructure that is more cyclical. So it's always evolving. It's an adaptive, it's completely from soup to nuts, and then it starts over again. So it's not like you build it and you walk away, like you said, Vala. It just, that model doesn't work anymore. So One Identity, it's deployed as a service. It's truly based on the identity, and then it's always adapting and shifting to whatever trends we see happening with regards to the threat surface.
Makes sense.
Very, very good, very interesting. And that's a sign of maturity we see in the market to a certain point. It all starts with best of breed point solutions.
That's right. Yes.
Consolidation phase where some people say, oh my God, is innovation stopping? possible, right? But the good news for the enterprise is you get rid of all the integration you have to do yourself. You get an out-of-the-box security, cybersecurity, identity suite, which does more automation for you, because you're not in the business of integrating security products. You're in the business of creating value in your value creation.
Exactly. Yes.
So it's great news for CIOs, for CTOs who have to secure the enterprise to see that enterprise suite level building. The interesting thing is, which we get as industry analysts anyway, what sets vendor A apart from B and C? Why should I go with that suite, right? So obviously we have to ask you, Larry, right? What do you think are the differentiators? I call them the hard, undeniable truths, right? Even your competitors say one identity will do this particularly right. What are those, Larry?
Yeah, and so, well, and Holger, I want to back up a little bit to what you just said, because I think part of what we have to do as at any vendor now is really help CISOs and CIOs understand what is happening in this market. So they have to shift their thought process a little bit. So it is a paradigm shift from the old methodology of how we are going to actually purchase security tools. We cannot deploy them in a tactical, fragmented fashion anymore. So, and what we've seen happening, this is what's very interesting. So I want to say it was probably more than 4 or 5 years ago, we started working on what we thought was going to be a strategic differentiator for One Identity. And that was the integration of all the 4 market segments that we support. So whether that's access or privilege or identity governance administration or Active Directory defense, how are we going to actually build a true platform on the integration of those things to make it easy to operate? So when you look at some of our where we differentiate strategically there, obviously we've been working on this platform approach for the last several years, but that's been validated just in the last, I'm going to say, year and a half, where we started seeing a lot of vendors talking about the identity fabric, the converged platform, or the unified platform, things like that. But what the difference there, though, is, but what we see a lot of vendors doing, they've been historically focused on a single market segment, like access management or identity governance administration, which is the privilege and lifecycle management and things like that, or just privilege management. And now they're trying to kind of, buy and stuff in, smaller, lightweight capabilities to be able to provide that. The problem with that approach is that we're trying to wedge in really, really lightweight, singular use case components into a much broader, bigger other market segment that vendor has been involved in for the last several years. And that's not their fault. That's just how the buying was, that the buying centers purchased that way for the last several years. Where our approach is, you look across all of our 4 segments, they're enterprise grade solutions that we have had a long time, and it's now just building the connective tissue in between them and creating a true platform there. So One Identity, really, to get to kind of the answer of why we're different, is we looked at all 4 market segments that could be stood up on their own individually, and then integrated those enterprise grade solutions together to provide that platform. Whereas where we see a lot of our vendors doing, and again, it's no fault of their own, that's just the space they've been in, is they're trying to buy lightweight little pieces and stuff it into the big component that they have. And where we find that doesn't really work is if a customer really wants privilege, for example, but they need more than a lightweight, they need a true enterprise type of platform. You really can't go to one of those other vendors and do that. But at One Identity, our focus all along has been, how do we create something better? The true 1 + 1 = 3 model that we always hear about. That's what we're doing. Things around zero trust and how that affects cyber insurance, which has been another big trend in the market today. And that's really what separates One Identity from a lot of the other vendors we compete with.
This is my final question, Larry.
Sure.
As much as my co-host has been going from Consumer Electronics Show to National Retail Foundation to World Economic Forum annual meeting, AI has been top of mind in all of these conferences, and frankly, every conference that we all attend. And yet, when analyst firms ask CISOs to prioritize the most important element that they're focused on, cybersecurity is number 1. Yeah. AI is creeping up. In fact, in most surveys is now 2, 3, but cybersecurity is number 1 across the board. And with 11,000 global clients, 80 of the Fortune 100, you yourself are in front of thousands of CISOs on an annual basis. What do you advise when you're in front of a CISO in terms of how they can start with identity security or expand their existing capabilities? Give us some advice in terms of how you guide these folks, including folks that are running the largest companies on earth.
Yeah, sure. And I tell you, the answer, Val, is probably going to surprise you, but we never start, we're a technology company. We never start with technology. We don't even mention product. We don't mention technology at all. So the first thing we want to make sure the CISO understands is, when you're looking at what you're purchasing today, we like to talk about this thing called situational fluency, which is understanding the market, understanding, the space that customer is in, understanding what's important to them, the business challenges, the technical challenges, and then how technology at the very end can solve those. Well, what we like to, first of all, educate our CISO is the way that you're purchasing security tools today has to change. And that's based on, like I talked about with the threat surface. But we also asked them to prioritize what today is the most important thing for you to get under. Is it reducing your premiums on your cyber insurance policies? Is it something that simple? Is it getting your privileged accounts under control? Is it something around compliance, SOX, HIPAA, PCI, whatever other kind of regulations? What is the priority? Let's start with that. And then let's figure out from there, how do we build a more effective security posture for you? So once we kind of get underneath the business part, then we can look at, what it would take to get there. And then technology, again, comes at the very end. So in order to that, we like to educate them what's happening in the market first. Because that phrase, you don't know what you don't know. So we like to go in and talk about what we see, because we are the experts. This is all we do. At One Identity, as the name implies, we only care about identity and credential-based cyber, and things like AI and hyper-automation that creep into that, like you just mentioned, Vala. And so anyway, we like to talk about those trends, like, AI is typically a part of another trend that's automation is a part of a digital transformation project. And that comes from a lack of cybersecurity skills. There's just a lack of talent there. And so they're investing in these hyper automation tools to try and bridge those gaps. So we like to make sure that the CISOs understand that these automation tools are themselves identities, which can be breached. We like to also make sure to point out that, the privilege accounts are very important. And, a lot of us talk about the fact that any account can be a privileged account. That's all it takes. So it's really an education for them. So we like to talk about all of that first, figure out where the priorities are, and then get into talking about what types of technology solutions can help them. So we never go in as a technology company and talk about that first. We actually like to talk about what's happening in the market, educate them, talk about the business, then get to how technology can start.
Well, thank you so much for providing solutions for what is the number one priority for businesses, not just CISOs. We're here with Larry Chinski, Senior Vice President of Corporate Strategy at One Identity. Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you for educating us.
Thank you, guys. Good to be here.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Wow.
It is hard, Holger, because no company, no business is secure. So this is an ongoing journey. It's our privilege to introduce our next two guests on our show. Susan MacKenty Brady is the founding CEO of the Simmons University Institute for Inclusive Leadership, where she holds the Deloitte Ellen Gabriel Chair for Women and Leadership. As an expert in driving accountability, Susan teaches leaders, executives, and leadership teams how to create a high-performing cultures fueled by respect, and has keynoted or consulted over 500 organizations around the world. Susan has previously published, Holger, this gives me imposter syndrome. Susan has previously published four books. The most recent one was co-authored. It was a Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Publisher Weekly, I think just, trifecta. This is called a hat trick in hockey. Bestseller called Arrive and Thrive, 7 Essential Practices of Women Navigating Leadership. Elisa Van Dam is the Vice President for Allyship and Inclusion at Simmons University Institute for Inclusive Leadership. Drawing on her expertise in gender equity and women's leadership, Elisa creates innovative programs that develop the mindset and skills of leaders at all stages of life so they can foster gender parity and culture of inclusion. Elisa is a co-author of the Inclusive Leaders Playbook, the work of the Inclusive Leader, she co-authored with Susan. She co-authored several other publications, including Importance of Belonging in the Workplace and the Importance of Authenticity in the Workplace. Welcome back, Susan, and welcome, Elisa, to Disrupt TV.
Hi,
and I'm
guys.
sorry I had to cut your bios short. We only have 20 minutes.
Oh,
We've
come
done
on.
a lot.
Come on. It's all good. Thanks for having us. You ready to talk about
That would be-
thriving?
Yes, we are.
And we're
Holger,
having
the
two
floor is yours.
authors on the end. Yeah.
Two
Perfect.
authors, multiple books. Holger, you and I need to step up our game. Go ahead, Holger.
Yeah, I'm at zero. I don't know where you find the time, Susan. I need some coaching here afterwards, how you prioritize it. I would be happy if I would do it one by one. But hey, I stumbled, to be really honest. I mean, I should know more about this, but I stumbled over the Simmons Institute for Inclusive Leadership. Right? Tell us a little more, like not too long, because we have lots of other interesting views. What is it? What do you guys do? Who funded it? Maybe where's it located?
Oh, awesome. Okay. So Simmons University is a Boston-based university right in the back of the Fenway for those people who like to trek over to the Emerald Necklace. We have been around for over 125 years, and the Institute for Inclusive Leadership was formed in 2019 to codify and bring together a lot of our work in various places of the university, really for one reason, and that is to manifest equity in leadership. Obviously our background and our specialty is gender equity in leadership. You know, we imagine a world where half the population are also half the world's leaders. And that would mean a lot more women in leadership.
Of course. Perfect. Very helpful. Thank you.
Elisa, your thoughts about the Simmons Institute, how you were engaged with the Institute, and additional narrative about the benefits of the Institute.
Well, I've had the privilege of being at Simmons for a little over 15 years, and as a women-centered institution, had the privilege to really focus on gender equity for a long time. So having the Institute as a place to bring together a lot of good work that we're doing, including our wonderful leadership conference coming up. That's our 45th this year.
Wow.
The longest running women's leadership conference in the world that we know.
When is it? When is the exact date?
April 3rd. If I get this wrong.
Right. We'll put it in the show. April this year, Boston.
And it's in Boston at Simmons?
Yeah.
Oh,
actually, we're at the Heinz Convention Center. We're online, and we'll have probably 7,000 to 8,000 people with us, about 1,200 in person at the Heinz Convention Center. Yeah.
Very good.
That's fantastic. So let me share a story of what I think it means to thrive in business. And I don't know, maybe 6-7 years ago, we had a couple of women executive at Salesforce go to our founder. And they went to the founder and they said, Mark, women at Salesforce are not getting paid for the same work that men are doing. Mark's first reaction, what are you talking about? We're Glassdoor, amazing company, best place to work in Forbes and Fortune and Fast Company. All these accolades of 1 million people a year apply to work at Salesforce. That can't be. Now, of course, we are a CRM company, so we actually care about data. So these two courageous women executives actually showed data. And it stated clearly, emphatically, that women at Salesforce were not getting paid the same amount. So we commissioned a study, and sure enough, that was the case. And we've been on a journey which has cost tens of millions of dollars for us to course correct. It's a journey because we acquire, in the 8 years I've been with the company, we've acquired about 60 companies. And with every acquisition, we realized, my goodness, they had a blind spot, same as us at Salesforce. So part of thriving, I would think, is equal pay for equal work. And so I'm going to ask you, what does it mean for women to thrive in the workplace? And even one of the best places to work, all these third-party validated accolades for Salesforce, and we still didn't create an opportunity for women leaders to thrive at our company. Hopefully now we're in the right path, but we weren't. What does it mean to thrive in the workplace?
So first of all, I just want to say I think Salesforce is for sure a company that we've been watching for quite a while, because it's rare that a CEO is willing to go out and say, I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to talk about it publicly. I'm going to be a benchmark. It was brave of Mark to do, and we need a lot more CEOs on the planet to do the same thing. So look, we don't pretend to define what thriving is for other people. Thriving is about positive impact. It's about creating, positive impact for ourselves and others. Elisa really headed up the study for thriving at work. Because we have access to tens of thousands of professional women, we're able to survey them on various topics. And our study really showed, women, I think all humans, women especially, we want to make a positive contribution. We want to learn and grow. And we want to be valued and recognized. I'd say the big aha from the study we have on thriving is, when women thrive, they report being more productive, more likely to go above and beyond, and that they're more effective. And so it really makes sense for not just women, but management, leadership, and organizations to care differentially about women thriving. Elisa, what would you add about the study and the impact?
It was really interesting to see the importance of learning and development for women as I thought about thriving. So intuitively, that wouldn't have been the first thing that came to mind for me, but it was a really strong result that in addition to feeling like they were making a positive impact, the ability to learn and develop is really critical for women feeling like they're thriving.
So career pathing, do you mean development in terms of promotions, additional responsibilities, even simple,
Certainly.
like I know sometimes you can have a sense of belonging, but it doesn't mean sense of mattering. So you can be part of, at Salesforce, like a Ohana culture, but we're trying to make sure that our managers help people understand that their work matters. They matter. So is that what does development mean in terms of the survey findings?
It's all of those things. It's interesting to think about. So learning and developing can mean different things to different people. Not everybody aspires to move up in the hierarchy of the organization, right? But they do want to keep learning and they do want to keep developing their skills. And when we think about the belonging side of it, the sort of definition of belonging that we came to through another piece of research is that it's about being uniquely valued for what you bring and who you are. So actually it's very hard to feel like you belong without also feeling valued. So those
Which
things.
I just have to say, I'm so curious about your differentiation between belonging and mattering, because I do think there's something there, but because we don't use the word mattering, per Elisa's point, it's almost embedded in what it means to belong, to feel valued, to matter,
When I had people when I had people management responsibilities prior to joining Salesforce, one of the habits I had when I had staff meeting or more than staff, large all hands meetings, or where it was not just my subordinates, but their subordinates. And I would start the meeting by asking the most junior person in the room to share his or her opinion about a project, a product, because I felt that when I started the meetings with the highest ranking folks, it shaped the narrative. And if you opposed that point of view, you were probably not likely to share. So one tactical thing that I did was open the conversation at the junior level. And I found that created a much more inclusive environment where people felt that their voice mattered. It wasn't the best titles, it was the best ideas. So you can get invited, for example, to a meeting and you have a sense of belonging, you got invited to the meeting, but you don't have the courage to say something because you don't feel like your opinion or your experience matters as much given the others in the room. I'm not sure if I'm clearly articulating the difference. But to me, it's belonging doesn't automatically means or feels like you have the courage in yourself to challenge positions and use data and evidence to create a more rich, inclusive conversation.
Well, I just have to tell you that what you just said really excites me, because I do think there's something about leaders modeling the way. Like, what does it look like to bring people into a conversation who might not feel empowered to speak up? We're actually addressing this head on at the Simmons Leadership Conference in April. We've got Gloria Steinem, ready for this, and Trevor Noah talking about what does it mean to bring in the men on the topic of women's leadership and to bring in allies on the topic of inclusion. Let's just have a conversation about that with those guys. So that's
awesome.
Cool.
Wow. That's amazing. Holger.
From my experience when leading mixed teams, engineering teams, it's so clear that, and it's in the research as well, women often don't want to put their hand up, don't want to stick out, don't go for a career opportunity as much as the male counterparts do. Right? The male counterparts do, of course I can do this, and they have no clue. And there's a woman who is overqualified, who should be doing this, who didn't raise her hand 2 times and doesn't do the 3rd time again. Right? So the interesting question for me is how much do you have to educate the people leaders that this is a pattern? that they're missing out on the next level of better leaders, not seeing that the woman will hold back, and not the first one who raise the hand will automatically be the most qualified person. And also realize on the flip side that a lot of our male education values says, of course I can do this with some bravado or whatever, and really are not the best qualified candidates, right? So how do we educate the leaders? Because the great question is, what can a people leader do to get a stronger team and a more equitable team and a team where there's more women with potential in the team? What advice would you give?
Okay, so that's one of the core things that we're really focused on is the both and. So talking with leaders about exactly what you said, what are the criteria that you are using to choose who gets an opportunity? And how are your biases that you may not even be aware of subtly shaping who gets access to those opportunities?
Right.
And then on our women's leadership development programs, and when we work with women leaders, we also talk about how can you raise your hand in a way that works, because we know that from a gender perspective, we don't always feel so great about women who self-promote, right? So however you identify, it's true for women, it's true for men, it's true for people of all genders. We don't really love it when we see a woman self-promoting, and if we see a man doing those same behaviors, we're like, oh, he's confident, he's a go-getter.
Yeah.
So it's both working with women leaders on how they show up and how they raise their hands and how maybe we support each other to have sponsorship. That's a huge piece of it. And working with leaders in general to say, like, how are you choosing who gets access and who are you sponsoring and who are you mentoring, and making sure that we create a more level playing field.
But let's be clear, women are ambitious. Okay, so let's, this whole, when Elisa, when we published the Thriving at Work study, we were interviewed by Mimi Fox at Forbes and others about the trends, the lazy girl trends and the snail girl trends. And, these are TikTok trends. And they actually have an interesting origin, but if you only hear the title, it does convey that women aren't ambitious. And you could connect, Holger, that, that's why they're not raising their hand. They don't really want to, advance. It's just not true. And therefore it's a little dangerous. So we like to promote integrated thriving, like absolutely, but it takes, per Elisa's point, it does take sponsorship. It does take sponsorship.
My 21-year-old daughter, who's attending a college in the Boston area, was applying for an internship, and it was an internship at one of the big four consultancy firms. And she contacts my wife and I and says, "I'm competing for this position, and it's me and a bunch of guys." And I'm nervous about it because one of the guys was actually president of the class. So I'm like, no, these are accomplished men who she's competing with. But we had to remind her, who's been teaching kids how to code for the last 3 years? Who has straight A grades? Who is a community leader? Who has done, and then, by the way, the good news is she got the position. So we're super happy. But it took a little bit of I remember telling her, watch Susan Cain's TED Talk because she's an introvert. Watch Vulnerability TED Talk by Brené Brown. Watch Amy Cuddy and before the interview, go and stretch yourself and give a power pose.
She's so lucky to have you as her dad.
I watch a lot of TED Talks. But anyway, by the way, I have nothing to do with her success. She takes all the goodness comes from mom's DNA, but she got the job. But I got to tell you, I really think that her reaching out and us having that reminder conversation put her in a different mindset. I'm a warrior. I'm going to go and I'm going to crush it. And she did. So what advice do you have for, young women who are in college looking for internships and positions, so early in their career? I wish I knew you two both. I should have, Susan, you've been on the show, but I'd be nervous to say to my daughter, you need to call Susan and have a chat. But what advice do you have for you? Yeah, I know. I appreciate it. And she's in the neighborhood too. What advice do you have for women entering the workforce? Where when we had Whitney Johnson on our show, Whitney Johnson said, it's not mentors and coaches. The people that helped my career most were sponsors, people that put their political and social capital on the line. And they served as ally, giving me introductions to senior leaders, the budget I needed, the headcount, the safe space. So my daughter, I want her to build those muscles of earning sponsors so that she can thrive. But what advice do you have for young entrepreneurs and students entering the workforce?
Elisa, do you want to go or do you want me to go first?
Why don't you start?
Okay. So I would say, look, every one of us, if we've ever been promoted before, has been promoted because we delivered on good work and someone in power noticed. Okay, that's the bottom line. We actually performed, and then we were acknowledged for that performance with greater assignment. Where I see young women in particular maybe shoot themselves in the foot a little bit early in the career is it's all about performance. It's all about head down, get it done, deliver. What's true is we need to balance a little bit of that with actually meeting other people, with networking within the organization, getting comfortable talking about what makes our strengths unique and where we can add value. I think, you know, it's okay to own that you have a unique suite of strengths and competencies and learned and inherent traits that make you great at what you're great at, you know? And so when someone says, hey, what do you love? It's really important to be able to say, I really enjoy XYZ, and be able to stand in that, you know, the sooner the better, so that sponsors can sponsor you around the things that actually light you up instead of waking up in a job that you don't like. So I would say, you know, looking for networks and doing a little bit of socializing at work, believe it or not, and not just trying to, you know, get the to-do list done. Elisa, what would you add? There's a lot here. There's a
awesome
lot.
advice.
Yeah, I love both of those. What I would add is keeping a kind of list of accomplishments, and that you can then remind yourself when you need that little boost of energy to say, like, yeah, but I did this hard thing and I did that hard thing. And also, you know, I really got great feedback on this other thing that I did. So if you kind of have that list in your back pocket and you've thought about what it is that made you successful in those times, so that you can stand on them when you need that little extra boost, I think that can be helpful. But I really want to echo Susan's point about meeting people, understanding who they are and what their goals are, and then sharing what yours are, so that people know you and they start to trust you and they are in a position to be able to sponsor you, and or just to give you that pep talk. You know, who's on your personal board of advisors that you can call when you need a little stiffening of the spine, who can say, you're awesome. I have the privilege of coaching some Simmons students, and one of them texted me one day and said, can you just remind me that I'm actually okay? And I was like, yes, I can. Here you go.
Awesome.
You are fantastic, and they are lucky to have you.
Holger, I want you to be on my personal board, but that's a conversation we'll have after this show. Holger, you have the last question.
No, it's super interesting topic, right? Father of 4 daughters. I'm all a fan on this, right?
Oh,
the interesting for me is, are we trying to make the woman like man, right? Remember your accomplishments. Have the guts in the salary conversation. Ask for more, right? Which women traditionally don't do, right? Should we not think about fostering a woman leadership style, right? That woman got the job because she's better at communicating. She's showing more empathy with the workers. People are staying longer on her team. That she didn't have the job experience and that she might not have so many accomplishments doesn't matter, but she will do a better job at that, right? Do we have to find a woman leadership, woman qualities in leadership position to really change that and not make man out of the woman, but find the other way of running and leading companies in a knowledge society where the biceps doesn't matter anymore, or like how much you can lift doesn't matter anymore, but what can you intuitively fine tune, lead people, which women are in my view, objectively better than men. Yeah, so
it's true.
What was your thinking on that? Because that's my frustration, to be really honest, on the topic since 20 or so years.
Yeah. So I think the way I think about this is about actually feminine and masculine, you know, energy, and actually bringing some of the feminine to work and allowing that to be connecting. And there's not a lot of data that shows that women are more emotionally intelligent than men. There is some compelling data that shows that women are connectionally intelligent. So, you know, it's no different than telling my daughters, like, I got eyes in the back of my head. Why? Because I'm scanning at all times, right? Whereas, you know, their dad might get a little bit more focused on one thing. So I think I think what's true is we need to open up the aperture a lot about what it means to lead effectively. And the bottom line is right now, today, it's I love you, now do your job. I think we want to hold people accountable, and we need to make sure they feel cared for. When it comes to connecting the dots here, I think women bring a lot to the table. Having said that, again, there's not a lot of evidence that women necessarily were born with more emotional intelligence and therefore comfort level to care. So, this is one of the reasons why we wrote Arrive and Thrive, my co-authors. We don't prescribe what, thriving is for people, but we do offer practices like, what do you value most? What makes you genuinely authentic you? And revisiting your values over time so that you can show up as congruent with what you really care about. Things like cultivating courage. Even those of us who have accomplishments in our careers, we have to double down and think, okay, I need to actually step out of my comfort zone and step into saying something and being courageous. So I do want to invite not just your listeners who identify as being a woman, but anyone who has women in their lives. Like, these practices are actually, we hope, very, very helpful when they're intentionally deployed. And Holger, I got to tell you, I think we are on the cusp of seeing a very different leadership model emerge. And we're hoping to do something big on that here at the Institute for Inclusive Leadership at Simmons.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, congratulations already for this. The two guests you mentioned at your conference in April. Wow, that's going to be an amazing event. I'm sorry, Elisa and Susan, but when my daughter watches this show and reads your Arrive and Thrive book, she's likely to come to Dad and say, "Please connect me with these two extraordinary leaders." So I'm just
she needs to come to the conference. If she's local, she needs to come to the Simmons Leadership Conference, and it's inclusiveleadership.com. All the information about what we do is there.
That's awesome. I'll definitely share. Also, my second daughter, who's in the process of picking schools as a senior in high school. We're here with Susan MacKenty Brady and Elisa Van Dam. Thank you so much. Both are members of the Simmons Institute for Inclusive Leadership. Thank you for expanding our minds, and appreciate your shared wisdom. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Wow.
First of all, I didn't know that you and I combined, we have 6 daughters. And you now I understand that you're white hair. I only have 2. You have 4. No, I don't want to say that.
Well, I told you I will do a culinary quiz with you at the end of the show. And for that, I have to literally kind of like let the pants down. Don't worry, I have to take my visual background because I can't show you. Otherwise, what I'm going to show you.
Let's do that.
What is this? It's edible. It's squishable. It's soft on the top. It is salty on the bottom. What is this?
Okay, so I thought first it was a Boston cream pie because I thought it was chocolate at the bottom. Then I thought it was a corn muffin, and it's not a corn muffin. What is that?
It's a German specialty, right? Obviously, I'm in Germany right now. It's German specialty. It's called, pronunciation first, a Dampfnudel. Can you say Dampfnudel?
Dampfnudel?
Dampfnudel, perfect. Like a steam noodle pasta. It's not really a noodle, right?
Okay.
In the region where I come from, the Pfalz region, it's savory on the bottom, sweet on top. It's part of your main course with the soup, or with sweets, right? With like whipped cream, or with some marmalade or other stuff, right? So that's the Dampfnudel, right?
So sorry, in the soup, are you dipping it in the soup?
You dip it in the soup, you dip it in the sauce, right? And it has unique savory, sweet taste, right? So
would anybody put marmalade or jam on the top?
Yes, there are some versions where they infuse, but the purest version from the Pfalz has nothing in it, right? So you can show you here.
And did you make this? Did you make this?
Oh, no. You can make it at home. But these taste so much better. Friday is market day. I get the Dampfnudel from Oppau, right, which are the best ones, and feed the whole family. And
is it warm cider? Is it alcohol, beer? What do you drink when you're having?
Pfalz region is always wine, right? We're famous for
always wine.
Right? It's always wine. Yeah, this is a part of Germany where you don't drink beer, right? So beer is for.
And what type of wine? Are we talking chilled, warm?
Yeah, no. White wine should be cold, right? So there's some red wines too, right? But Yeah, so we can talk about wines next time, but this time we talk about the Dampfnudeln, which
First of all,
prevented wars, right? The story is like in the 30-year war, like a local town was big confessional war. The Swedes were here, and they were saying, you have to pay us to feed our troops. And they fed them with Dampfnudeln instead, and they didn't have to pay the ransom or the feeding for the troops there. So that's
I'm going to immediately message, and Elle is listening, our number one producer in the world. We're no longer going to have co-hosts that cannot bring this culinary wisdom to expand. That's amazing. Elle, please make note of that. Ray and I have done a poor job in 8 years educating the thousands of folks that listen to Disrupt the goodness of preventing conflict using delicious food. That's incredible.
Who will fight when you're eating food, right? So
listen, I'm the least distracted when I have delicious food in front of me. Perfect. Next week, we have episode 350, a milestone for us, 350 episodes. We have Graham Sheldon, Chief Product Officer at UPath, Hugo Rao, who's the author of The Friction Project, How Smart Leaders Make the Right Things Easier and the Wrong Things Harder. And we might have a surprise guest, given it's our 350th episode. Holger Mueller, thank you so much for being an incredible co-host. And not only you filled Ray's shoes, I'm now nervous you're going to replace me as co-host.
No. Thank you. You make me look good, Vala. Thank you so much for having me. This was great and fun to have on two super interesting topics, cybersecurity and women in business leadership position. Super interesting. Thanks for having me. Much appreciated. Don't miss the next episode. It's going to be even more fabulous and amazing. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Holger. If it's Friday, it's Disrupt TV. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.